It was a nail-biter down the stretch inside Cameron Indoor Stadium, but Duke walks away with a victory. Duke defeats Clemson on Saturday by 1 point. We break down the game on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with JJ Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you so much for being here with us on Monday, January 29th, 2024. We keep moving forward throughout the Duke basketball season, and we have got a lot to discuss right here on Locked On Blue Devils. Go ahead and do us a favor. Give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils. I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On Blue Devils podcast for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Your support means so much to us as well. And also make sure that you subscribe to our Locked On Blue Devils YouTube page to watch the show daily. Thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and first watch each and every day. Special shout out to all of our everydayers out there. Thank you for making us a part of your life. And we hope that we're recapping more and more Duke basketball victories in the days to come. Duke barely survives a 1-point victory over Clemson on Saturday, and it's going to be our good buddy Jordan Mann from the Big J and Little J show who joins us here now on the program. We're back in the win column, Jordan, but it wasn't easy down the stretch. Duke finds a way to get the win.
It's a gritty win, man. Gritty win. And that's just, at the end of the day, it's a W. So it doesn't matter how pretty or how ugly it became. Duke's now 6-2 in conference, and they have a huge road test tonight, as we'll dive into at the end of the show.
Yeah, got a couple of games to talk about with this Duke team. Quick turnaround. First, Saturday to Monday turnaround for Duke basketball. We saw the North Carolina Tar Heels do this a week ago, and now it's the Tar Heels that Duke also kind of has their mind on. That game coming up this upcoming Saturday, excuse me. So big week here for Duke basketball.
Oh yeah, see what you're made of. This is the stretch that we talked about plenty of times on our previous shows, that this was the stretch. January schedule is pretty light at the beginning, and then it's going to end with the tough Clemson team, tough road team against Virginia Tech, and then at UNC. So these 3-game stretch, see what you're made of.
Duke survives against Clemson 72-71 on Saturday inside Cameron Indoor Stadium. Duke had a 6-point halftime lead. Their largest lead of the game was earlier in that first half. They led by as many as 12. We saw Clemson take a lead in that second half. Duke fights back. Duke takes a late lead with Kyle Filipowski. P.J. Hall fouled with about 7 seconds left to go for Clemson. He knocks down a pair of free throws, and then it's Tyrese Proctor who drives, gets the foul call, and with 1 second left on the clock, he's able to knock down 2 free throws to give Duke the victory. I mean, wow. Talk about those last 30 seconds, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it was just not Kyle Filipowski's day. The whole day, whole night was not his night. And then the and one was massive because that just kind of shows what type of seasons he's had. Like against Arkansas, he started off really sloppy, and then the second half he turned on late, even though Duke lost. There's been multiple games where he's just not been great for, let's say, 38 minutes, and then the last 2 minutes he shows what he is and shows what he can be. And that last possession that he had before he fouled out, I mean, he couldn't hit. He was 5-11 from the free throw line, 4 of 10 before he made the and one, and he had 6 points and 4 fouls. And he comes down, gets a tough and one, gives Duke the lead, but then the next possession on defense, he gets called reaching, gets fouled out for his 5th foul. And then the Proctor one, I know Twitter loved to talk about it wasn't a foul because everybody hates Duke, so I get it. But if you look at anybody's tweets from Media Row who was actually at the game, they said in no debate that was a foul all day. And that's at the end of the day, that's all that matters, because journalists don't have any bias. And if they saw it with their own two eyes, then it was a foul. And I thought it was a foul on TV, but I saw like Connor O'Neill from my co-host, Big J, Little J show. So that was a foul. And Josh Graham said the same thing. So, yeah, it was a foul. And shout out to Proctor nailing the 2 free throws. You still got to hit the free throws. Yeah. Shout out to Proctor. He had a great game.
Yeah, just because you get the foul doesn't mean you win the basketball game in that moment. You still got to go to the line and make sure that you make those free throws. When that takes place, the officials aren't going to change their call, but what they've got to do is they've got to go take a look at the timing situation since it comes so late in the basketball game, which makes Proctor sit there and think about it for that much longer in a big venue, knowing how important a win like this is for Duke. The mood would be entirely different, and I know that there are going to be some naysayers kind of out there and Debbie Downers, we like to call them. But I tell you, it'd be a whole lot worse if this wasn't a win. So the pressure that Proctor was feeling in those moments, just waiting for the basketball to come his way. He kept walking over towards the bench, wanting to get a towel to make sure he could wipe off his hands. I mean, just the thoughts had to be going crazy. He looked calm and composed, but you could tell just a little bit by what all he was doing that he was definitely aware of how big of shots were coming up.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to him because that was Duke would either make 2 free throws that game or miss 2 free throws. I've never seen anything like it to where it wasn't they'd make one and miss one. It was literally, all right, Filipowski's going to the line, he'll miss 2, and then he gets fouled, and he'll make 2. And then it was insane. And for Proctor, like you said, all that downtime is the worst feeling. It's just like, hey, ref, give me the ball so I can get to the line and I can shoot these, because it's almost icing the kicker in a way of like, he's not getting the free throws yet because they're stalling, if you will, and he knocked them both down. And also, JJ, we'll backtrack a little bit. Jared McCain had 2 or 3 steals in the last 2 minutes. Like, people can talk about the foul call if it was or wasn't. Clemson had 3 or 4 turnovers in the last 2 minutes that swung the game to Duke, and that won't be talked about because of the foul call, but Jared McCain came up huge down the stretch on the defensive side of the things.
Yeah, we're going to be able to take a look at a lot of the numbers here in just a little bit. Do want to talk about the end of the game, though. Duke walks away with victory, 72-71 over Clemson, and a lot of takes on whether or not it was a foul at the end of the basketball game. We had this conversation last year in Charlottesville when Filipowski does not get the whistle at the end, and then the ACC says, hey, we got that call wrong. And, I mean, what a momentum swing it was for Duke. They go on the long winning streak after the fact. So we're used to kind of some big-time endings there with the officials involved. But, again, from your perspective, Jordan, I want people to go check out the Big J and Little J show where you're talking basketball all the time. But to give your background for folks who aren't as aware, former high school basketball coach, a Division III basketball player throughout your college career, like you have had a lot of basketball playing days in your lifetime. You've been around the game your whole life pretty much. What did you see on that last play from Proctor?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a foul. He got, if you want to even go back 3 seconds before he shot it, he was getting hand checked at the 3-point line, and he fought through that. And then when he was going up, Duke gave him no verticality. So you got to let him land. You got to let him jump up straight up. Didn't give him that. Hit him on the body and then hit his right arm with his left hand. The defender did. And I thought it was a good foul call. I just didn't know if the ref was going to call it right then and there because it was such a massive call. So I didn't know if they're going to let the physicality play out or if they're going to call it. But I thought it was a foul all day long.
I saw online after the fact, a lot of people, like you're saying, talking about whether or not this was a foul call. And Seth Davis, a longtime college basketball writer, you mentioned all the kind of non-biased reporters that you've got there. That is what a journalist is paid to do, talking exactly to your point there. Just watch the clips back and see the defender's feet from the jump to where he lands, and he's clearly invading Proctor's space on the drive there.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, exactly right. Like it's just going to be a talking point because it's Duke basketball, and that just comes with the territory of having DUKE across your chest, JJ. It's just you're always going to be in the wrong no matter what.
I love it. Well, we got a big win for Duke, 72-71. The game was much more than the last second, literally. As we talked about last week against Louisville, people a little frustrated with that second half. And my take was simply, hey, give them credit for the first half of play and what they were able to do to build a cushion. And yet again, let's make sure we talk a little bit about that first half where Duke did have as large of as a 12-point lead in this basketball game. We'll talk about that. We'll take a look at some of the numbers. And, yeah, we've just got a lot more coming. Jordan Mann is here with us on this Monday. A fun episode of Locked On Blue Devils here for you today. We're back in just a moment after this quick break. Locked On Blue Devils here today, brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. That's right, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, JJ Jackson alongside my pal Jordan Mann. I mentioned it a moment ago, the Big J and Little J show. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can read the hoodie right now of Jordan Mann promoting the great show that he's got. Tell us a little bit about it, Jordan.
Yeah, so we'll be recording sometime this week. We recorded last week previewing the Clemson game, and I did say on the previous Big J and Little J show that the game would be more – Duke would win if Proctor did something well rather than Filipowski. Now, I didn't think Filipowski would have this bad of an off game, but Proctor showing 2 consecutive really good games is a really good sign for Duke basketball. And yeah, we're going to have a YouTube channel. You and I will talk about it more as we get done, as we wrap up this, but big things coming hopefully on YouTube as well. So check us out, on Apple and Spotify podcasts and YouTube.
Okay, if people are brand new to us, welcome in. You're part of the Locked On Blue Devils family weekly here. We're going to talk a lot about what you've got going on with the Big J and Little J show. Tell us one more time, Jordan, what the name means if people are brand new to you. And
so it's a great question, JJ, because I get it asked all the time. So the Big J stands for a journalist because they call themselves Big J's. And so to play off of that, I call myself a Little J because I'm not a journalist. I'm just a fan. So Connor is the Big J in this situation, and I'm the Little J. So that's where you get the Big J and Little J show.
I love it. Connor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated, also a frequent guest here on Locked On Blue Devils. Go and check out their show as well. All right, so we got to talk about this game this past weekend, Jordan, with Duke basketball's victory over Clemson, again by 1 point at the very end. It's Proctor who knocks down a couple of big free throws for the Blue Devils. If you're watching with us on YouTube, we'll put that box score up for you. But when you take a look at some of the numbers from the game, what really tells you the story for Duke here?
Honestly, what tells me the story, JJ, is I had it up here as well. Crap. I just maximized this. But basically, is the lack of turnovers they had. Like, Duke had only 7 turnovers. They really took care of the ball, and they held Clemson to 30% from 3. And so the defense was pretty solid for most of the game. And honestly, too, like you can say Jared McCain was arguably the better player, the best player for Duke, but I would maybe lean even Proctor because Proctor's first half performance really put a spark into Duke that carried over to the second half. So those 2 guys really stood out to me, but I'd have to say holding Clemson to 7 of 23 from shooting 3 is very pivotal for Duke.
Yeah, of course, if you're looking at this box score with us, this comes from Stat Broadcast, a big venue live broadcasting feed that all the broadcasters are using throughout the course of a game. So you could see the full picture of what's going on. And what I love to look at is at the very end of the game, you could see on the top right portion of your screen there, a look at the current trends for Clemson, having made 4 of their last 5 shots from the floor, but had not made a shot in 3 minutes and 4 seconds. No field goals in the last 3 minutes of the game. When you look at Clemson, they had 5 turnovers for the longest portion of the basketball game. For essentially 37 minutes, only 5 turnovers for the Tigers. In those last 3 minutes, part of the reason they weren't making shots from the floor is because they kept turning the basketball over. Duke comes up with the big steal. We had the big lay-in by Jared McCain late in the game. So that's a big thing to kind of look at here when you're taking a look at Duke and Clemson. Clemson, very sloppy down the stretch. Credit to Duke's defense as well for what they were able to do.
Yeah, this old saying goes, I have an old saying, JJ, that pressure makes diamonds or pressure can bust pipes. So pressure busts Clemson's pipes and pressure made diamonds out of Jared McCain still in the ball and having a couple easy layups for Duke in those clutch moments.
Duke basketball did lose the battle on the boards. That's something we've been looking at lately. A massive win in Duke's favor rebounding against Louisville earlier in the week. But Clemson actually won the battle on the boards. 42 rebounds for the Tigers, just 33 for Duke. Clemson had 11 offensive rebounds, only 4 offensive rebounds for Duke. And Duke did not have any second chance points. Clemson had 15. So particularly there in the first half, Clemson wasn't getting those opportunities. That's why Duke was able to extend that lead a good bit. But there in the second half, as they're fighting back, Duke just was not closing out possessions with rebounds.
No, they weren't. But John Shire has talked about, like, this team is not going to – they're not going to be the most athletic team, and they're not going to be this or that, but they just have to be gritty. And that's what Duke was. Like, what Clemson did offensively and defensive rebounds is what they do. But what Duke did was create turnovers in key parts of the game like we just talked about. And then again, 30% from three for Clemson. Like, Duke finds ways to win games in different variations, and that's what makes this Duke team scary, because Filipowski had an off night. Preseason ACC Player of the Year just was not there for basically the entire game for Duke, unfortunately. Very true. And Duke still found a way to win. I know Clemson is now 3-5, I think, in the ACC, but this Clemson team was supposed to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the ACC with the production that was returning. And, oh, by the way, Girard transferred in, who's a lights-out shooter. Duke still beat him at home with Filipowski being non-existent. And that's not a recipe for success for Duke to have him have an off game, but to show that Duke can win with him having an off game speaks volumes to what this team can be.
All right, the backcourt for Duke. You've got Jeremy Roach coming off the bench. He was able to go. That was a big question mark for us, was going to be Roach's status, considering how he left that Louisville game. What did you make of kind of the lineup that was out there on the floor for the Duke basketball team? You could see Roach is back. However, he only played 25 minutes out there on the floor. Another kind of thing to look at there was Filipowski's foul trouble. He was not effective, but he also wasn't out there on the floor. He only played 24 minutes.
Yeah, that, like I just talked about Filipowski having an off day. You're dealing with Roach basically still kind of injured or just had an off game because of his injury. 5 points, 1 of 8 from the field in 25 minutes, and other guys stepped up. I mean, Marksman Mitchell, 1 for 1 from 3 in an ACC game. So you love to see it from Marksman Mitchell. But Tyrese Proctor and Jared McCain held the weight. Like, they were the reason Duke won. I mean, both of them combined for 7 of the 9 threes Duke hit, and both of them combined for almost 40 points. They scored over half the team points. That just shows the collective unit, JJ, of what Duke can be, man. Anybody can go off for Duke. And so far, Jared McCain and Proctor the last couple of games have really been that for Duke.
Yeah, loved what we saw out of both of those guys. And that's kind of where I wanted to go next, was the play of the backcourt between McCain and Proctor. We're talking a lot about those free throws at the end for Tyrese Proctor, but that kind of omits the other 16 points that he had. 18 total when you factor in those 2 free throws that he got at the end. He shot 4 free throws, by the way. Again, that's something you're always telling us about, Jordan, watching those free throw attempts for Proctor, but it's the 3-point shooting that's really starting to heat up for him. 4 of 6 in this one, including a step back that I still don't know if Clemson's defenders have recovered from that first half step back he had.
Yeah, like, there was a couple possessions. Proctor played really great. But there was a couple of times where you could tell that he was filling it from 3, and he had his defender beat where he could probably go for a layup or a nice little dump-off pass for a layup, but decided to make his way back to the 3-point line to see if he could get a 3 off. So some of those possessions, I'd like to see him get to the rim more. But when you're feeling it like he was, I mean, that was a highlight reel step back. He has done that once a game for this whole season, it seems like, JJ, where he's just had a highlight reel play of a one-on-one ISO and has made the defender embarrass himself for a 3 or a 2. So I love Tyrese Proctor's last couple of games, and hopefully this shows that he's turned a corner. And when Duke plays Virginia Tech tonight, he will be a man that steps up.
Yeah, it's a big game coming up for Duke basketball. Taking on the Hokies, a very quick turnaround. Duke was at Cameron Indoor this past Saturday, and now less than 48 hours, we're heading to Castle Coliseum in Blacksburg to take on Virginia Tech. We got to preview that game after we take one more time out here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. That's right, we love FanDuel so much. It's America's #1 sports book. The Super Bowl is coming. Happy Super Bowl to all those who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. Really excited to see this big-time matchup that we've got coming up between the 49ers and the Chiefs. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl 58, but also FanDuel has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, who scores first, how long the national anthem is. It's all there and so much more. New customers join today and you get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, winding down today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils alongside Jordan Mann. I'm JJ Jackson. Got another game coming up for Duke. Quick turnaround here for the Blue Devils. We'll see the upcoming schedule. Scroll across the bottom of your screen. Again, if you're watching us here on YouTube, tonight at Virginia Tech, Saturday on the road in Chapel Hill to take on the Tar Heels. Let's talk about tonight, though, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, this is – people want to probably say it's a sandwich spot for Duke looking ahead to UNC. I think that's not the case. I mean, this Duke team is 1-5 in the last 6 at Castle. So Virginia Tech has had Duke's number in the last 6 matchups at Virginia Tech and Blacksburg. So I think Duke knows what's ahead of them tonight, JJ, and Duke has to win tonight before they play Saturday.
We need it. We need it. We need it. We need it. I want to have a big win going into Saturday's game. I want to be able to shake that monkey that you're mentioning. Duke struggles at Castle Coliseum over the years. I hate watching the games at Castle Coliseum because we just have these horrors from years past where Duke just has not played that well. The venue on television screens we're just not used to looking at. And I don't know, man. We just can't get that Virginia Tech monkey off the Duke basketball back.
The floor is ugly. It looks dim in there. It's just, it seems like when I was a kid, JJ, when Duke lost Virginia Tech, I remember JJ Redick was going in the game like 94% from the free throw line. He missed 3 free throws or something like that in a loss. It's just like weird things happen at Virginia Tech. So,
and the images for me more than anything is that like the seats are up elevated a little bit over the court. And so when Duke loses, it's a storming opportunity for Virginia Tech. And they're basically falling down onto the floor. It's not an easy kind of jump down or simply run onto the floor that you've got at other venues. It's just always, it's like, this is worrisome, but like, I hate it because it means that Duke just lost this game with how that venue's set up, man.
This is going to get
these college kids falling down, man.
Yeah, this is going to be clipped by my good friends who are Virginia Tech fans, and they're going to call me a hater. And they're going to clip this on Virginia Tech Twitter, and that's not going to be great for me, JJ, if Duke loses and this clip
they get that opportunity. Ratio. Yeah,
I might get suspended again on Twitter.
It's a lot of familiar names, though. We talked a little bit with Isaac Trotter, a national basketball insider for 247 Sports on Friday's show. You can go back and listen to that on the Locked On Blue Devils podcast feed. But we were talking about a Virginia Tech team that features the likes of Hunter Couture and some of those big names that we're used to. Sean Padula, certainly at that guard spot that we've seen over the years. A lot of experienced players, I think we should add, for this Hokie team.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Padula, dude. I mean, Virginia Tech beat Clemson 87-72, and in that game he had 32 points. He leads the team with 16 points per game, so that's a guy Duke's going to have to take out right away if they want to win this ball game. And I got a couple more keys to that too, but that is like key number 1. Hey, limit their best and their leading scorer at home against you and do not let him go off. So I think you'll see a lot of Proctor guarding him because I don't know what Roach's status is in terms of if he's going to come off the bench again. Is he healthy enough to play 30 to 35 minutes? So if not, then I think Proctor is the guy that's going to guard him.
We're taking a look at Duke and Virginia Tech tonight. It's a 7 p.m. Eastern tip-off on ESPN. Duke is now number 7 once again in the AP poll after a pair of victories this past week. The Blue Devils are 3.5-point favorites, according to our friends over at FanDuel. And the ESPN Analytics tab gives Duke a 59.6% chance to win this basketball game. It's going to be a grinded out type game, I think, for Duke. And I think they're going to have to make a lot of big plays down the stretch. And throughout this whole season, we've been talking about those home versus road shooting splits for Duke. Really need to make sure those shots are falling from the outside.
Great point, JJ. I was about to just go into that too. So thank you for leading me to it. My key to that is Duke's shooting splits have been night and day, home and road, and if Duke is shooting poorly, this is a team that Duke has to take advantage of getting offensive rebounds. I know you talked about the Clemson game. Duke didn't have second chance points against Clemson. That can change against Virginia Tech, who's leading rebounders, averaging 6.5 rebounds a game. Duke has Filipowski and Mark Mitchell crashing the glass. They have opportunities to have second chance points around the rim. I'd love to see Filipowski get those second chance points after struggling to score against Clemson. Get him some easy ones around the rim on missed three opportunities. And also Ryan Young and Sean Stewart, like they have spot minutes and they probably combine for like 25 minutes a game. But this is a game where those two guys are really talented getting offensive rebounds for Duke. If they can keep a lot of possessions for Duke and get second chance points via kickouts, that would be massive for Duke to win this road game.
Lynn Kidd is the name to know in the middle for the Hokies. 6'10", 14 points per game, and as you mentioned, 6.5 rebounds per game as well. The experienced guards in Sean Padula and Hunter Couture, and then another 9-point scorer, nearly averaging double figures on the season, is Tyler Nickel, who's in his first season playing for Virginia Tech. Remember, he played for the North Carolina Tar Heels last year as a freshman, committed to UNC out of high school, but then after 1 year in Chapel Hill, he transfers to Virginia Tech. He's from Harrisonburg, so back to his home state. But those are some of the big names to know for the game going into tonight. Yeah,
absolutely. I'll give you one more too, JJ, is Malajo Poteet. He's the backup center for Virginia Tech. Shout out to my boy Deferred Walk-On on X. He gave me a little what am I going to say? He gave me some insight. That's what he is. Gave me some insight on him as he thinks Filipowski will be like the key of shutting Filipowski down is the reason Virginia Tech could win. And he shouted out to Petit and obviously Lynn Kidd, as you just talked about, as the two big bodies to try and shut down Filipowski. But I think Shire will go after Filipowski or go to Filipowski to get him going early in this game, JJ, because he had that off game against Clemson.
Enough talking about it. We got to be about it. Again, Duke is 15-4 on the season, 6-2 in ACC play. Our North Carolina Tar Heel friends had an opportunity to lose for us on Saturday at Florida State, but make a big comeback there in the second half, and the Seminoles can't quite close it out. So they still have 0 losses in ACC play. Duke's got to climb a couple of mountains as they're chasing a ACC regular season title, and it's going to start again tonight. Final thoughts on the game tonight, Jordan?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a type of game that we saw Duke at Notre Dame, where it was an ugly, gritty conference road win, and I think that's what's going to happen in this game. I think it's going to go 10, 11 rounds of just heavyweight boxers and see what you're made of.
I love it. Well, we will see what takes place. We'll be able to talk about this and a big UNC game coming up this weekend next week when you join us here again on the show. Jordan, thanks for coming by, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you as always, JJ.
All right, that's Jordan Mann joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Go check him out, again, at JMan's Takes, now on X, at Big J Little J Show, and go find his show as well to listen to it. That's going to do it for our show here today. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.